Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 4 of Tomo-Chan is a Girl. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So, it seems as though we might be focusing on Misuzu today. You know, she's, I guess, unfortunate to have to deal with Tanabe here, but I don't know, the poor guy, like, he never really seems to quite get what's going on, and he just sort of inserts himself into the situation regardless of whether or not it's appropriate. But he is, I guess, taking a big interest into Misuzu, particularly wanting to get her to smile and all that. I mean, based on what Jin's saying, her smile's, nothing special. It's not really anything you want, but I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder and all that. So, Tanabe, the poor guy, I think he's really taking the wrong approach. If he wanted to sort of interact with Misuzu in any meaningful way, I think the best approach would probably be to engage in some sort of subterfuge or do something malicious, Annoying her isn't going to win you any favors. And I think Carol demonstrates that pretty well, too. I mean, I guess she's good-natured enough to not sort of do anything, but, well, you know what? I take that back. Maybe Misuzu had a reasonable, I guess, threshold for being willing to do something like that. Carol's a bit of an enigma. There certainly isn't a whole lot going on upstairs, but it's not like she's acting on instinct either. There's like something greater here. It's like there's a pattern that we mere mortals can't quite recognize, and she's just sort of tracing it out. So, if that all weren't enough, Tomo's sort of latched on to the idea that maybe Misuzu is, I guess, kind of interested in Jun since he said that she always smiles around him. And I feel like this is going to be one of those things where Jun sort of interprets a slightly less impassive expression as a smile, and it's, not necessarily the case that she is in fact smiling. So I feel like Tomo's getting ideas here, and perhaps she shouldn't be. You know, she's watching other people enviously and sort of thinking to herself, man, I want to do stuff like that, I want to be a normal girl and blah blah blah. But I don't know, like, I feel this is kind of missing the point here. You know, trying to force yourself to be normal will usually only have deleterious effects, as it just seems, you know, uncanny. Like, I guess it's hard to describe in concrete terms, but, like, people can tell when other people are doing stuff that they don't normally do, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like Tomo just acting girly deliberately, like, that'll really just sort of skeeve people out more than it would benefit her in any way. So, if Misuzu's not willing to help, fortunately Carol is, and, you know, she might not truly understand the dynamics of what's going on here, but she is, at the very least, good-natured enough to go along with it. You know, I'm wondering if this is perhaps bait on the part of the author here. You know, I feel like Tomo is delving into things here that, you know, might attract readership. So, yeah, you know, I think this just sort of speaks of, like, a sort of social unawareness where Tomo's just gonna go around hugging people. And, I mean, when given the prospect of Tomo doing all this, you know, I think it only makes sense that some people would be a little less than enthused, seeing as how she's the person known for beating people up. Unfortunately, it seems like this whole thing is creating a bit of a rift between her and Misuzu. And, like, I don't know, on the face of things, she seems to be just sort of acting usual. Or acting as usual, rather. Oh, there we have it, you know. I was kind of right in that the difference between her being neutral and angry is, you know, measured in millionths of a meter. Yeah, you know, I think this is bait. He's saying, you know, Misuzu wouldn't normally get angry about something like this, but now that she is, you know, there's implications here and subterfuge and all sorts of stuff going on in the background. So I'm wondering if maybe that was Misuzu's sort of roundabout way of saying that she's at fault here. Saying, you know, like, oh, it's just somebody behaving childishly. Like, you know, I feel like there's a reasonable interpretation in that, you know, you could consider it a snipe at Carol, or just Misuzu being just kind of roundabout in how she's explaining things. And, you know, once again, it really seems like the big problem here is that nobody actually says what they mean, and they just sort of lie or ignore the topic or deflect. I mean, Misuzu's bringing up the pertinent topic here in that, you know, if you like hugging people so much, why don't you hug Jun, you know? he has no problem making physical contact with you. You know, this should be a no-brainer. It should be the obvious next step. So I guess, you know, actually giving him a hug in theory isn't any big deal, but I guess Tomo sort of initiating it will be a bit strange. Oh dear. So, well, that's interesting. You know, Jun's sort of like, you know, we're in high school, you can't be doing stuff like this. And one has to wonder what precisely he means by that. And I guess even more interestingly, he's drawing a distinction here that it's okay when he does it. Like, you know, I get this is basically convenient for the plot here, but there's gotta be some sort of reason no matter how stupid it is. You know, there's usually something like this where Jin misunderstands, and he has a perfectly reasonable justification based on that misunderstanding. But frankly, I'm at a loss for what it could possibly be. And seeing as how things have transitioned to the next little segment, I seriously doubt we will ever learn what precisely he meant by "it's okay when I do it." So I guess the plot's developing rather interestingly in that, you know, Tomo's sort of waking up late here and Jun's, I guess, operating in place of an alarm clock. I mean, at the very least, he was, sanctioned by Tomo's father, but, you know, that's a rather rude wake-up call. It's definitely not something I would be interested in having happen. You know, I guess it's only lucky that Tomo was, relatively decent in sleep attire. You know, maybe it's not common in Japan or anything like that, but I know some people don't exactly sleep with a lot of clothes, so, you know, things could very quickly become awkward. So speaking of awkward, you know, Tomo doesn't seem like a particularly good cook here. I mean, if you just have sort of like whole sardines and rice balls, like, full disclosure, I don't like seafood, so obviously this doesn't appeal to me, but to somebody who would enjoy seafood, I can't imagine this is going to be very appealing at any rate. So it's kind of weird that, you know, Tomo has, I guess, inherited traits from both her parents in a weird sort of way. You know, like, I recognize they are, in fact, fictional characters, but, I don't know, I always think it's interesting when you can sort of see the inherited traits. Maybe that's just me. And I guess tellingly, Jun is sort of, maybe not defending, but sort of speaking on behalf of his father's behavior. You know, seeing as how, in a bit of an inversion to, I guess, what you would expect, like the big burly guy is, kinda shy about his wife, in a weird sort of way. Now, interestingly, Carol and Misuzu seem to be conspiring here, in that they've forced Jun to eat lunch alone with Tomo. Or rather, they forced Tomo, I should say. And, Tomo's in this position where she can't relax or enjoy her lunch. Probably in no small part because everybody seems to be gossiping about it. It's interesting that that's, I guess, the topic of classroom gossip. I mean, maybe I just wasn't keyed into it when I was in school, but it seemed to me that this was never, something that happened where a class would be gossiping about one potential couple in particular. I mean, it's not that it never happens. I'm sure in some cases it does, but if it did, I certainly wasn't paying attention to it. Okay, so this is interesting. The martial arts club captain, he and Carol know each other, and they've known each other for quite a while. This is a bit of an interesting revelation, and I guess to a degree they are kind of similar. It's interesting because Carol sort of mentioned that she never really had any friends, so I'm wondering if this guy's maybe like a cousin or something rather than a true friend. I mean, he said himself that he sort of views Carol as akin to a little sister to him, and I guess, fair enough, so maybe they aren't related after all. So it seems like Tomo's sort of missing the point of this whole you get to eat lunch alone with Jun by sort of harassing Carol and Misuzu, where were you guys? Well, where do you think? They were having lunch. So this is interesting. Those two sort of delinquent type girls, they're actually approaching Tomo for help. Considering how eager they were to, I guess, start conflict and then sort of talk about her behind her back. It's interesting that they would actually go to her for help, and it seems like, they want to have Tomo initiate violence. I mean, I guess, fair enough, it seems like violence might be warranted and, somebody formidable is necessary, seeing as how this guy's a known philanderer and a bit of a delinquent himself. Okay, so that makes it even more interesting. She just wanted Tomo around when she turned him down, but it seems like Tomo is not only going to speak for them, but perhaps even initiate. Yep, here we go. I mean, I guess it makes sense that, a guy they described as being kind of a jerk would be kind of a jerk. So I guess the only question is, when people start throwing punches, who's going to be the worst off here? I could see this going a couple ways. Because on the one hand, Tomo just, raffle stomps this guy. But on the other hand, if he is capable of fighting back, then, this might be a good opportunity for Jun to sort of intervene out of nowhere. That would be nice and, I guess, if not romantic, something that could be made to be romantic. I mean, it's all academic now, it hardly matters. It is interesting that the girls are almost more afraid of Tomo now that she actually helped them, you know. I mean, Tomo says, hey, if he tries anything again, like, I'll defend you, so don't worry about it, but... Alright, so the plot is thickening. This guy isn't done with the group. So, if he can't win one-on-one, he's going to get a gang together. Fortunately, though, it seems like it might not get to that point, seeing as how Jun is overhearing the plotting. And, maybe just, walking up to the guy and kicking him like that is a bit unwarranted, seeing as how you don't know precisely what's going on, but... I guess these guys clearly aren't good guys. Well, I guess if it was impressive enough that Tomo was able to beat that guy so easily, I guess it's even more impressive that Jun was, able to pummel these guys into submission. So much so that they would actually seek out Tomo to apologize. I feel like that takes a significantly bigger beating than just, beating people into giving up. I mean, it's not like Jin was unscathed or anything, but, at the very least, he's willing to sort of, lie about it and say it's like, oh, I fell down some stairs. The classic lie. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.